dome-shaped domes on the Muslim mosque or the Masonic mosque, that's patterned after spaceships. But this is the spaceship in Kemet, and this is how it looks blown up. You see, that's a monument of the actual spaceship. Another spaceship by the Dogon. The Dogon shows you a spaceship, they say Nommo, which is in the form of the Christ. It will come back, and this is Nommo's ark. Surely a 10,000-year-old people. This is supposed to be primitive. They have a Nommo's ark that they make out of a bread basket, which is clearly a spaceship. Now, clearly a spaceship. Now let's deal with a couple other things right quick. To deal with some stuff. One of the name of those ships in Egypt was called the Ben. Ben also means the Benu bird, the phoenix. One of those ships was called the Ben ship in Egypt, or in Kemet. You'll get this in Stairway to Heaven. Whole sections on that particular part. Whole sections. This is the spaceship of the Dogon. Now, breaking down things further, the white boy has made in the Metropolitan Museum of Art right here in New York City. The white boy has taken a particular temple. We'll show you the picture of the temple. He has taken a particular temple, and he has that temple in the Metropolitan Museum of Art right here in New York City, an Egyptian temple that he took from Kemet. Took it down in pieces and brought it to New York. Our stuff is all over the world, as we see. Now, as I told you before, this is the hieroglyphic symbol of Sirius, which is the pyramid is in there and the star. Now, I want to show you some things to show you where heaven was. We got proof on where heaven is. Also, we know that this is the star system Sirius. Now, let me break down this hieroglyphics that's coming out of the coffin text and the tombs of the dead pharaohs to let you know. Number one, recorded in the Sirius Mystery and also in E. Wallace's Budge books, Egyptian Resurrection, Volume 1 and 2, the Pharaoh Pepi went to Sirius. There's several people we know of in the history of the world who has gone to Christhood. Imhotep rose to Christhood, later on known as Asclepius by the Greeks, the god. Pharaoh Pepi rose to Christhood. Ramesses II rose to Christhood. Akhenaten rose to Christhood. Several ones rose to their Christhoods. We know this now. This is the star system Sirius photograph, I think in the late 1960s. And it's one of the few photographs of Sirius B, which couldn't be seen by the naked eye, but the Dogon picked it up. All in the book, The Sirius Mysteries, as well as the book called The Pale Fox. Pale meaning white, fox meaning slick fly. Also, we have a picture of a glider that they thought was a bird, but it's geometrically designed. It's a glider in Kemet. This is a picture of that glider. Aerodynamically designed, coming out of the pyramids in Kemet. You see. African aeronautics. Now, show you two phases of what heaven was in the actual Kemet. Here is one. In Kemet, there's several levels. One of the levels, when you see on your tombstone, you have when you're born and when you die. And in the middle, you have a slash, which is your life. You have the birth date and the expiration date on when you die. In the middle, you have the slash, that's your life. In Kemet, on the tombs, they had the same things. They had down here, they showed what the Pharaoh did when he was living. Right here, this is one that showed the birth, because you have Apit, which is the birth. And up here, it shows where the actual person went. And right here is a picture of Isis, and right here is the hieroglyph of Sirius, which is the end time result of where you went. To give you a better representation, here's a better one. Here's a better one. Right here, it shows where you're born. Coming from heaven, you see the goddess hippopotamus, goddess Apit. Behind her, you will see a crocodile on the back of her. The crocodile represents the triple blackness of space, and the crocodile in Kemet is called Sebet, which is also the form of Kim, and Kim means melanin. The crocodile in Kemet means melanin. So when you see the great mother and the crocodile, it means the constellation of Draco. It means the blackest part of the earth, the supreme melanin realm on where you came from. Right in the middle, you will see Chanus or cartouches. Those particular Chanus and cartouches that you see in the middle is the person's life. Birth, which is the first when you're born on the tombstone, you see that? Right here, you see the life. That's what happened in the Pharaoh's life. Because only the noble people got recorded. Remember that. And right here is when he died, you see the heavens again. This is chaos. This is the light, and this is going into light. Right here, you see the heavens again. And right here, you see Heru. And right here, you see Isis. And up here at the top, you see the hieroglyph of Sirius, showing you where did you go in heaven. Sirius, the star system Sirius, the great realm. And this is proof of where the pharaohs went, right on the sarcophagus. And also in the pyramid text, and also in the actual burial tombs, or where the actual pharaohs went after they died. Proof of Sirius, right there. Now, deal with a couple other things, and we're going to get to the apex of what the mystery system is all about. Right here, show you a picture of this. I don't know if I brought it. But right here on the back, you will see this is on the sarcophagus of Tutankhamun. They show the star system Sirius hitting him in the forehead. That also means in actuality that that's what was the aim, Sirius, hitting him right in the forehead. The pineal gland is a form of the star Sirius as well as the black dot. That's the star in you, the sun in Bethlehem. As above, so below. As on top, so with under. As within, so without. That's the law of correspondence in the book, the Holy Kabbalion. Now we're going to get into what the actual pyramids, temples, obelisks, and tombs were built for. The main thing was they was aligned up for the star Sirius. There's an article in the British Museum, and that article in the British Museum, and a papyrus in the British Museum called Syriac architecture. It is the astronomical science of the Egyptians. They put me a good old temple up here on the wall. It's the astronomical science of the Egyptians, or the Kemites. Put me a good temple on the wall. The Temple of Dendera, which is one of the most sacred ones. Then we're going to get into Edfu. Temple of Dendera, built to the star Sirius. Since we're talking about all of the temples were built to the star Sirius. The astronomical science of the Egyptians, the most conspicuous solar system near our own, represented in the heavens by the brilliant star Sirius, was of supreme interest. The cycles of the innermost importance were determined by its, and it entered into the highest mysteries of the Egyptian initiation. Surely logical to assume that Egyptian Manetho, the Siritic land, was Sirius. Manetho. Now where you get your, when you deal, let's deal with this right quick. Philadelphia is the second, which was the Greek Ptolemy. Asked Manetho, the high priest Manetho, to record the history of Egypt. He said there was 500 pharaohs in the dynastic, 800 in the pre-dynastic. 500 represents 3,000 years, and 800 represents 5,000 years. He said roughly close to 10,000 years, give or take. They said, who used to rule before then? He said that's when the gods used to rule. Well, who were the gods? That was black people before they fell into the actual third dimension, and all your stuff shut down. So the attainment of Sirius was to get you back to godhood, based on the mystery system, right? Now, this is the recording thing where Manetho surely states that that's when the gods used to rule. He was talking about his own black people. An Egyptian sage told Solon, which was a Greek, he told him that the initiates had to get used to the idea that they worshiped the gods for about, let's say, about 30 years. And then later on up into the initiation of the mystery system, they would say, guess what? Them gods you used to worship, they used to walk the earth just like you. And they would have to get used to the part of this God used to walk the earth just like them. You see. And this was a supreme part of the initiation. You would have to deal with that then. You see. And that's the whole part about becoming God. So Manetho told them that 8,000, he said what? 8 to 10,000 years, and he said the gods used to rule. But Manetho, one thing in the mystery system you never did tell people your true origin or your lineage or time. That means a person can know when you came on the earth, he can dictate how long he can keep you. So they never told the time, so when he gave them the whole 3,000 year stuff, he was lying. He forged that. But it's in his book called Sothis, which is named after Sirius. Sothis means Sirius. And Manetho, he talks about the Syridic land. He says, from Syros or Sirius according to the Greek translation. Mede is G.R.S. Mede, who wrote the book Thrice Great Hermes. Hermes is the god Tahuti. This is the god Tahuti. Tahuti simply says that I did not come from Egypt. I'm beyond Kemetic. I come from the Syriac land, which means the land of the deluge, of the flood, which is talking about Atlantis. But the part of Atlantis that they were in was Egypt. Egypt was Atlantis, was a part of Atlantis. It's just older than the dynastic period. Now, Mede refers to the records of Tahuti, the now records of ancient time being self-registered. This is the key now. This is what your whole temple means in Kemet. This is the mystery. The pyramids, obelisks, and temples, while in their later times nearly all monumentous, were built according to types of Masonic instruments of Egyptian astronomical science and astrogeological science. The science he continues, that's me continuing, is studied more in more recent times and by Egyptians in result of research printed in a private circulation copy of them to be found in the British Museum. G.R.S. Mede states in a preface, the author writes, the astrogeological science which gives birth to the monuments in Sirius, by means of which the fruits of the combination of observation experiences of the human race, hue means color, the British word human, which means God-man, has been preserved, outliving the writers and the outliving writings, inscriptions, traditions, and nationalities. So it's dealing with something with nationalities. The principal monument has imparted to them the essential property of beings, and it says beings of landmarks of geo-chronological nature, many of them recorded hydromathematically. What the hell that means? The knowledge in the astronomy, geography, and in the dimensions of figure of the earth obtained in the rare speculation of epics. There are Syriac monuments, which means that the temples, obelisks, and pyramids are Syriac monuments because their magical lines were projected in a scale of revolutions of the star Sirius in terms of the standard astrogeological cubit. He may read here we may read an Egyptian scholar confirming the strong Syrian influence of the evolution of the development of his land in archaic times. I have so far been unable to obtain the further information regarding the documents, but, this is the person, the author of this book, but anyone with more time to spare and gather the aptitude of persistence might well meet with success. In antiquity, there were constant references to the pillars of Hermes, Tahuti, from which many ancient writers claim to have gleaned their information concerning the periodic times. Several of I have already in the chapters. This is the person in this particular book. Now, what they are saying here is this, basically, that pyramids, obelisks, and temples are all built around the star system Sirius that I just showed you, that particular star system. It's called Syriac architecture, based on an article that they got in the British Museum. Well, there's something that was interesting that started around 1986 in Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta, Georgia, because the Syriac land is Atlantis. And just so happened that Egypt was one of the capitals of it, in Atlantis. The white man just gives you the island of Atlantis because he don't want to connect it with Africa in one landmass, because when he does that, connect with Africa, you would know that on this earth there was one people and one landmass, and it was all black people, and the other race came from that. So he always separates the island of Atlantis from the mainland of Atlantis, which is Africa. You see, that's the key to the whole thing. He separates the island of Atlantis that went down in the Atlantic Ocean from the mainland of Atlantis, which is Africa. But surely you know doggone well you can take South America and Africa and put them together, and they fit like a puzzle. And it was all one landmass. And we also know that there was only one people, because wherever you go on earth, you're going to find black people who was already there. There's big old black heads built on Eastern Island. There's big old black heads in Mexico. Your Olmecs, your Aztecs. You see what I'm saying? There's black warriors on the vestas of the samurai warriors. There's black Chinese. Your black ninja, the ninja that wears black because his original mystery system was started by black people. So he wears all black to symbolize melanin. The white fake Jew that came in during the time of Spain based on the 13 tribes, Arthur Koestler's book, who is a fake Jew that converted into Judaism, that has nothing to do with the original northern Ethiopian at all. The Lubavitchers up here wear all black to try to symbolize melanin. And they wear the Horus lock, the Heruz lock, to symbolize melanin that they don't have. You see. But the Syriac architecture comes from Atlantis, and the new Atlantis is Atlanta, Georgia, which in Atlanta, Georgia's history, they talk about Atlantis reemerged from up under the water, as well as Haiti. And then in the mid-'80s, they started building Syriac architecture. You have the step pyramid of Saqqara that I told you, built by Zosa, and also Imhotep was the architect. The step pyramid of Saqqara that's called a Peachtree 1 building, and it lights up as the step pyramid, and they got beams shooting up. You got obelisks on the CNN, the CNS bank. It's called Wachovia Bank now. And you got obelisks on the, you got a big gold obelisk and pyramids. You got pyramids on the IBM building. You see, Georgia Tech has over doggone 50-something pyramids all over Georgia Tech, as well as the football field with pyramids all over it. They have the Temple of Dendera down there. They have other temples. They got one particular thing, looked like the lighthouse of Alexandria, two temples standing up right beside each other. It's all based on Syriac architecture out of the British Museum. And Atlanta is the new Atlantis. Why? Because also Atlantis has a big woman holding up a bird talking about the phoenix. There's two phoenix in the world. One the fake and one the real. The fake phoenix is Phoenix, Arizona. Ain't not there but white people. And they so racist, they don't even want to give Martin Luther King a birthday, and he was their savior. The other phoenix is the black Atlanta, the civil rights seat, that's now coming with the black university complex, which is the other phoenix. which is also the new home for the Illuminati, because the old home is New York, named after York Wright, Old York, the old York Wright Masonry, who ran Washington, D.C. Whole conversation between George Washington and another concerned person saying how New York run things. He said, I know that, but they run the world. That's the home of the Illuminati. So the new thing is also Atlanta. They're trying to flock down there because you got to get out of the old cities. But this whole thing is going down, and that's Sirius architecture. Now, let me go into a couple other things before you do your answers. I got a few other things I got to deal with. Now, let's deal with Akhenaten and Tel al-Amarna. Very important. Akhenaten in actuality is Moses. The life of Akhenaten is the life of Moses, and the life of Moses is the life of Aaron. But Moses was a priest of Akhenaten, and after Akhenaten disappeared, or Akhenaten died or ascended, they took the work that was attributed to him and gave it to Moses. Because Moses could speak the language of the people, and Akhenaten couldn't. But it was all black Hebrews at that time. And the Hebrews was nothing but a group of northern Ethiopians that broke away from the government with Akhenaten. You see. So they're saying in actuality they don't know what happened to him, but now we got reports that he did live, and he retreated to the Sinai Peninsula. And that's where you get Moses going up on the Sinai Mountain, because he was the father. Akhenaten was the father of monotheism, or so what he thought, because the religion was always monotheistic. In Wallace's Budge, the last book of his life, he said, I have been mistaken, which I thought was a polytheistic religion was a monotheistic religion all the time. All the other gods that you see is just like the 99 attributes of Allah. It represented one God or the God one. And when you put the gods together, they fit together as one puzzle as the one God or the God one. Wallace's Budge's book, From Fetish to God in Ancient Egypt, 1935, the last year of his life. Akhenaten merely just re-emphasized the monotheism by just putting one particular symbol of the god. Right here is a fake particular picture of Nefertiti. The Berlin bust that was found on an artist's floor in Berlin, and we know that that's a straight up lie. Now, they said that she was a mulatto, but we got pictures of this particular sister. Number one, you know that this is the head of Tutankhamun. No, this is the head of one of his daughters. And as you can see, that particular head on her is that particular skull. It's only found in black people. Check. Now, I want to show you something. Number one, this is a lid, very key, because you don't see these particular pictures. But this is a book called King of Egypt by Sirius Aldred. And this particular book, you're going to find out in actuality Sirius Aldred was playing tricks on his white counterparts. He would put the blackest pictures he could find. King of Egypt by Sirius, Akhenaten, King of Egypt by Sirius Aldred. Here's another black picture of a black woman with big lips, and surely you can look, if you focus in on that, ain't nothing but a sister with dreads or braids. Nothing but a sister. That's no mistake, and he was good at doing that. Here's a real picture of Nefertiti. If you focus in on that particular picture of Nefertiti, and you can surely see, sitting beside her husband Akhenaten and one of the daughters, you can surely see that that is a black woman. And that has nothing to do with that fake Berlin bust that I just first showed you. That fake Berlin bust. Now, to let you know that Nefertiti was also a black woman, I want to show you something else. This is a picture of even though the head is gone, I'm going to show you a picture of the body of Nefertiti. And surely, if you look at this particular picture, you will know that that is nothing but a black woman. Look at them glorious thighs, and look at that booty back there. Surely the only thing that's got this kind of booty is a sister. And them kind of thighs. Akhenaten, yes, she was fine. Akhenaten, wife, Nefertiti, yes, she was fine. Gotta hold that booty there. Look at that booty. Look at them thighs. It wasn't until Akhenaten time that you had the most explicit type of art in ancient Kemet. And that was one of the pictures, even though the head is gone, surely. You look at that, you know that this is something that transcends time, because if you look at it long enough, you can say, damn, you might get one up on it. Now, I'll show you another picture. If you look at this picture real close, you're going to find out it is a picture Nefertiti sitting on Akhenaten's lap. So Akhenaten was doing the pimp daddy thing where he put his woman on the lap. Never before in Egypt you saw him sitting side by side, but in this particular broke-off picture, he just throwed her up on his lap. Because that really know right there the origin of how the black man serenades his woman. The sheer apex of black sensuality is the black man and the black woman. So these are some pictures also too. We want to deal with also too. Now, at this particular time, we want to get into the teachings, and we want to get into the science of earth, wind, and fire, which surely reintroduce as what we can say also too. Let me get this particular picture. One of the best pictures, this is the Sphinx with the head blown off, with the nose blown off. There's another picture here that you'll always see. It's this particular picture, and I think it's also in Diop's book, African Origins of Myth of Reality. You will see this particular picture with the Sphinx, and definitely you can see it's supposed to have been when the actual nose was still on it. It's a debatable picture for some people, but here's a famous picture of the Sphinx. You can blow up, hone in on this one. So supposedly with the nose still on it. But if you look at the lips, you can swear out it's a black person. Some say a black woman, some say a black man. But it's of both sex that you're dealing with at this particular time. So this is the science that's also going on. Now, let's deal with some things that I got from the spiritual realm based on a certain amount of channelings, because what we do is we not only deal with when the actual scholarship breaks down and we want to find out a higher scholarship, we get things from channels also too. Now, based on this particular channel was coming from two sisters, one by the name of Shakura out of Coney Island, and one by the name of Shakura out of Coney Island, and also one by the name of Sister Tarsili out of Atlanta, Georgia. And at that particular time, I asked the question of the spiritual origins of a particular person. And that particular person was an Egyptian priest of Ptah by the name of Ptah Hu Hetep Sah. He was a priest of Ptah. Ptah Hu Hetep Sah was a priest of Ptah. It rose himself to Christhood, but what he did was that particular person decided to come back, reincarnate and come back to be in a later date to help people to get past the 70s through the art of music when the 60s revolution broke down. That particular priest of Ptah is none other than Maurice White of Earth, Wind, and Fire, as we've been showing different pictures. One of the pictures is the 1977 version. The first one where he really started dealing with the name Earth, Wind, and Fire right there is the elements of the universe, is a name within itself. But the first picture where he started dealing with the whole Egyptology side and the black science side was the Spirit 1976 album, Spirit, which features songs as Getaway and Saturday Night and different things. This is the first one on the episode of Ptah Hu Hetep Sah. The second one was this was 1976, the album Spirit, where you can see them surely behind three pyramids. The tall pyramid being the actual great pyramids of Giza, and there are white pyramids also too, and it's called Spirit. Now, we understand that he also first started out with Ramsey Lewis in the 1960s, and later on started his own group around 1972. One of the first albums was called Last Days in Time, which was the second album of the first Columbia record, Last Days in Time, and the second album, the first album also entitled Earth, Wind, and Fire. Now, one of the other greatest albums, also a great album, but one of the album covers as we've been spotlighting on here, is the All in All album of 1977. Also, which you can see that the limestone casings on the pyramid was restored by the artist Sushi. At this particular time, he used a particular Japanese artist called Sushi. And, or Asian artist, I think the Sushi would be Japanese. And also you would see the Ramesses tomb, but right here you see all in all, and you see a light that's coming from inside the tomb. That symbolized the light that used to hit Ramesses in his forehead on his birthday. When the white boy moved the temple back, he could not duplicate that, and now the light comes a day late. But also, we understand that the pyramids, even by reports of Ivan Van Sertima, that the particular pyramids would have that particular light based on the capstone would shine, and you could see you could actually see that light for miles around. It would shine off the pyramids. One of the great representations. Also, we want to break down some of these covers, because it also shows that it went into a technological age that you see with different pyramids and different things also too, and it goes right through the Middle Age. But on the other side of the cover, you also see is the Great Pyramid with the Eye of Heru in it, and it's separating the cap, which is also the capstone is also called the 13th man. We'll deal with some of that in a few minutes. You also see the Sphinx that's there. Also, you see the symbols of all the other religions that came up out of Kemet, as well as the Helios Biblios, which is called the Holy Bible. You see. And they have all the other ones, and plus they still have Egyptian Ankh and everything else that's here too. Buddha, the Kundalini symbol is now the form of that is now the form of the Medical Association. You understand? This is the sign of Jupiter. You see. Now we're dealing with different things that's going on. You see. So these are some things that's also dealing with the actual sciences. Now, the next famous album cover that we would have would in actuality be a midway point for them would be the Greatest Hits album cover. That particular Greatest Hits album cover at that particular time was the Best of Earth, Wind, and Fire, Volume 1. You see the phoenix bird, which is the symbol of Heru, the Benu bird, which is the phoenix bird, which is a form of Ra-Heru Kahuti rising from the ashes, or the reincarnation of the god Osiris in the underworld rising up as his son Ra-Heru Kahuti and rising from the ashes as the phoenix that's due to come right now. Is the reason why they would make the movie Stargate and turn Ra evil, because they understand Yeshua is not coming back. They understand in the form of the phoenix or in the form of the Sphinx, which is the crown and conquering child of the conquering lion of Judah. They understand based on that is the phoenix. The Sphinx and the phoenix is one and the same as Heru on the horizon, or Haramakit, which means Heru on the horizon, or Ra-Heru Kahuti. Based on the number 19, which also means Allah on both horizons. Ra-Heru Kahuti means God of the double one. The double one, or God of the both horizons. Ra-Heru Kahuti means also God of the both horizon, and number 19 is based on 1 and 9 is completion, which means Allah on both horizons. And Allah also means the black man. On the back, you also see Tutankhamun, the pyramid on the back, as well as the sign of Jupiter on this gold coin. 1978 version of the Greatest Hits, Volume 1. Very key and crucial things that's going on. All right, then that leads us up to 1989. 1979. They wrote the book called I Am, Earth, Wind, and Fire. And I Am, you can see also, you see an old black man and you see an embryo right there. And right here you still see the hypostyle halls at Karnak. Now, it's interesting in this particular album cover, on the front part they show the pictures of Earth, Wind, and Fire with their different types of mythical suits on, mythical costumes on, and also you see their particular signs and different ages that we went through also too, you see. Now, it's interesting in the back of this thing because they got really deep and metaphysical with the great captain, because if you can look real close, and I want to emphasize this, so this is one you're going to have to really go into, and I'm going to explain this. First you see Kemet, then you see the Middle Ages, then you see New York City right here, and then also too, you see the Roman Empire, and then it goes into what is called the modern ages of technology, and right here you see UFOs coming in and they're blowing up everything. And right here you see it's coming right back to Kemet, or Egypt, because you see the Ramesses temple right here. You see. Real key. I Am album, 1979. Now, 1979. Also now, 1980, they had the album, the double album set Faces, and they had a different types of faces, and they had a white pyramid in the middle of them. Now, one of the key albums is also 1981. you had the album Raised, and as you can see, you see a picture of Isis, and on the other side, you see some form of technology. Also here, you also see a face of Isis and some form of technology of where we're supposed to be going, or where we have already been. And right here, you will actually see on the inside, you will see a picture of the earth, a picture of the sun, and also supposed to be God's hand, which represents Sirius, and coming on the inside of the pyramid, which is also like the pyramid that you saw that went on top of, that came on top of the actual, Stargate, which is also duplicated in Matrix 3 book, also too. Then we get a little more metaphysical. They had the 1983 album called Power Light. And in this album, you can clearly see the chakra centers as well as the actual sun. You actually see a man in there with the power light is the actual 7 chakra centers that's in us, or the 7 souls of man, which is also represented as the 7 seals in the book of Revelation. Also on the back, you see gold. Gold is a form of the god Soot. And it's also talk about the black and gold ones that they talk about also. The black and gold ones is also representing us. Black, but we radiate gold. So this is the Power Light album from 1983. Also, this is one of the later albums. This album is called Heritage, 1989. Oh, actually, 1989, 1990. Actually, it was 1990, which is the first of this decade, and it's called Heritage. And as you can see, it has the African print on it. That you would also see replicas of this African print in certain mud cloth, and also certain African women in certain parts of West Africa that do this type of print, and it's called Heritage, both on back and front. Also, we have the latest album, which you're going to have to key in. By this time, you know, we go on the CD, you know, so the albums have phased out. And right here, I can show you, is Earth, Wind, and Fire called Millennium, and they got a picture of the Sphinx, the pyramids, the black bull, and a woman riding the bull. Right here, they got a picture of Luxor's temple. And they have different things throughout the ages of mythical things that's going on. But if you can clearly state at the end of the millennium, right at the last page, they got pictures of the UFOs coming in also too. So this is one called Millennia on the last one. We're just telling people to go out. Also now there's a box set that came out based on Columbia, because now they're on Warner Brothers again, based on Columbia. The past 20-something years, there's a box set that came out in 1992, and this particular box set is all of the hits plus about 7 or 8 songs, about 40-something songs on 3 CD discs, and also you have about 7 or 8 songs that is also was unreleased, as well as different interludes that was unreleased, and all of that type stuff. Now my last particular, before we go into a good question and answer on here, my last particular one is a Sirius temple called the Temple of Heru at Edfu. Now it's real interesting. This is the outside of the particular temple. This is the ruins of the temple, and what you would see now is still, even though it's the most preserved temple that's there. Now what's interesting about this particular temple, is because here is also some stuff that's coming from the planisphere, which is also the hieroglyphic writings is dealing with the science. And also, based on this hieroglyphic writings, you got 2 versions of papyrus, or two versions of different mythical stories that's dealing with UFOs that's coming from the Temple of Edfu. Here's a side view of the Temple of Edfu. A side view. Now, I want to show you something in this particular book. One that woke me up, because this is one of the greatest drawings of David Roberts. So here it is. This is the one I need. I know that's one, but this is one with a bigger picture. This is one of the greatest drawings of David Roberts. And this is one of his watercolors of the inside of the Temple of Edfu, even though they hadn't clean out the sand, because the Arabs were there and sand had gotten into these temples, and it wasn't until the British came in and cleaned out the sand for years. There were centuries they had been there, and the Arabs wasn't doing anything with them, because they are savage people, the white Arab. Now up here you can also see the winged disc, and also you can see the red dot, which is also represented as the black dot. and you could see the actual parts of the Temple of Edfu before the paint fell off. But the people were sitting on the sand, and sand had covered the temples, the tombs, the monuments, and everything until the British came in and cleaned it off. Even though they were savage, the Arabs were even savage because they sat on that knowledge for damn near 1,000 years and didn't even excavate it at all because they thought they had the real thing, Islam, and didn't understand that this is where it all came from. Even the beast, the white man, figured that out. What a dumb people to not even research even the origin of their own religion. Because a person in a religion and don't know the history of a religion is a fool in the religion. So this is the inside part. Now, when I saw this particular picture, I immediately died. Because I understood that this were greater people than what it is. And this thing here tapped into the archetypes of my collective unconsciousness and even brought me closer into the spiritual aspects of my history. It went underground. Now, in the metaphysical sense, the occult tells you, and the spirit world that we get, it was a doorway that also opened right after the Arabs invaded. And this doorway opened, and the last wave of the Kemites left and went to the subterranean world, which is a whole nother world up under this ground. Also, there was a doorway that opened, I think, 9,000 BC, that the waves of the Kemites that went through, that was the old Kemites of Atlantis went into the subterranean world also, too. But so what happened was is you had some priests that go up underground, and therefore there couldn't be no more teaching for white people until the Moors preserved some of that history and went up and started teaching them with the 16 universities that they put out in England, as well as introducing masonry with your Knights Templars. It was taught by the Moors, that particular science also too in masonry. So now what we're going to deal with at this particular time is Abydos. And we're going to treat this real careful because this is very important. Now, Abydos is the first Holy Land, and I'm going to show you a picture. I'm going to show you a picture of the Temple of Seti I, which they don't ever show too much pictures of the Temple of Seti I in no books, hardly. You can get a rendition of the Temple of Seti I. You could actually get a piece on it, actually. A 1982 piece from National Geographic with a white woman that traveled to Egypt when she was real young called Seti. There's a whole book out in search for Seti. White woman, they did repairs on the Temple of Seti I, which Seti I is the temple of Ramesses the First, Seti I, named after the god Sut. Ramesses the Second, that you know of as the Great Ramesses, traveled there to Abydos when he was 21, and he built the temple for his father after Seti I died. And he built the particular temple. And this particular temple is built in the first Holy Land, when in actuality it's the first Holy Land. It's actually the second Holy Land, but it's one of the oldest Holy Lands because you got Holy Lands that go all the way back to Atlantis and Lemuria. And it contains in the Temple of Seti I the second creation story, because that's your Osirian drama that your pyramid text is built off of was the last or the latest series of dramas that was dealing with the science of ancient Egypt. Your first is in that Temple of Seti I that I talk about, where you would have the Temple of Dendera, where you would have this particular drama that was going on of the creation story of the god Apit, the hippopotamus goddess, which is the oldest. It's the Typhonian science that go all the way back to Atlantis, Lemuria, and right off the planet, which is your oldest. Your second would be your Osirian or your Amen science, and that would be your second creation story, which is actually the same of this particular creation story. Instead of it coming from Apit, is coming from the primordial waters of Noon, Ra is being rebirthed as that particular part also too. Now, it's interesting about the Temple of Seti I, because the Temple of Seti I, it was a temple that at the particular time, it housed, at the particular time when it was built, the people, the Ramesside kings, all the way up to Ramesses V, was interested in the science of the races. So the Egyptian priests who had the apex of knowledge on the planet knew what races were. And the particular science of races is what they were actually dealing with at that particular time and was concerned about. So as a matter of fact, some of your papyruses as well as your stuff was dealing with races. Now, it's interesting because at that particular time, Champollion translated hieroglyphics in, I think, 1834, 1835, and then later on he immediately went to Kemetic to study the temples to translate what he had, translate the new stuff. And so he wrote a couple of letters back to Champollion the Elder. You can get that account in this particular book, Sheikh Anta Diop's Myth of Reality, African Origins of Civilization, Myth of Reality, edited and translated by Mercer Cook. Now the key to this whole thing is this. I don't know, maybe Diop, because he's married with the white woman, he didn't put the other excerpt in that's coming from Champollion's findings at Biblium El Manuk, and also the findings at the Temple of Seti I. So he didn't put it in. And Champollion, when he went there, he was very upset when he came up on the readings, because at that particular temple, let me show you this picture. There's a picture of 4 races of men. Let me give you this picture on this right now. At that particular temple, there's 4 races of men. Supposedly red, yellow, black, and white. Well, that red that they talk about, or the yellow they talk about, was only mulatto. It wasn't no other race. The 4 races of men is the different hues of the black man, and then you would have a created man. Now, he didn't add this particular part in, but actually Gerald Massey added it in. And what it is dealing with is this. Let me explain this. First of all, I want to show you 2 pictures. I was able to find a picture of Seti I not only in the they don't show a lot of pictures of Seti I. I guess they don't want people to visit there because there's still some things on the temple walls they don't want to deal with, because it's dealing with race, and when you deal with race, sooner or later in its antiquity, you're going to find out that the white man is not human. Hue means color. So therefore, they make sure that they don't show a lot of pictures. But it's interesting to note, and if you get the piece, the 1982 Science on Egypt by the National Geographic put out a video. It's on video now. It was on the show of the National Geographic show on the land of the Pharaohs. And I think it's called Egypt, the Eternal Quest, or something like that. It was the name of the 1982 documentary. Anyway, they show a picture of the Temple of Seti I in Abydos, the first Holy Land, or one of the oldest Holy Lands. They show the particular picture, and it was given a story on Seti. So she was at the Temple of Seti I, and they had just reconstructed it, and they were showing this particular picture. They didn't show any other picture. You don't see that much pictures in magazines for the simple fact they won't show them. I did get a picture of a 1989 picture of of Seti I, but you could also find pictures of Seti I in Dr. Ben's book. This is the layout of Seti I, and also this would be the actual picture of Seti I. 2 pictures of Seti I, of the Temple of Seti I. Now the art at Seti I is beautiful art when you ever see the inside of the art of Seti I. But the actual picture of Seti I that's new is totally different from the actual picture of Seti I just 100 years ago. It seems that the white boy totally reconstructed a picture. This is the original picture of the Temple of Seti I. Now this is very important. This is how the temple looked. You want to zoom in on this, you know. Now, this is the original picture of the Temple of Seti I. Let me see what it says. We're going to deal with some stuff. I think this was in the late 1800s. The Temple of Seti I, 1849 to 1859. They said it shamelessly visited, because I guess even the people that visited this, they wanted to reroute people. They didn't show this particular picture. Now, why? This is the original picture, and the picture I showed you before, and the picture that you actually will see on the documentary of National Geographic in 1982. The picture that you're going to actually see other than this picture is a completely new temple. They actually tore down the temple and rebuilt it again. Now why? Based on Champollion's findings, Champollion writing back, now you're going to get it in Diop's book, African Origins of Civilization, Myth and Reality. Now, he's right, Champollion, when he went to Kemet, he wrote back, I think, 14 letters to his older brother, Champollion the Elder. And as a matter of fact, he was upset about what he saw. Now, he was talking about this Tamahu, which was supposed to be this race of white people who were supposed to be savage and not depicted as humans. Now, the key to the whole thing about this particular Tamahu is this. Even though Shenkanta Diop, that was taking the actual science from the Temple of Biblium El Manuk, which was the tombs of Ramesses IV and the Fifth, and also the Temple of Seti I, and the tomb of Seti I. He did not record all what he's supposed to record, the final page of this book, because he was married to this white woman. Now, Jeremiah in his book, Ancient Egypt, Book of the Beginning, Volume 1, page 27, gives you the final piece. And it's talking about the four races of men. Now, the Egyptians identified themselves on the monuments as the root. A pictorial representation is found at the tomb of Seti I. Four races of people arranged in groups. This is what you see right here. Now, arranged in groups. Now, now let's deal with this particular part that I want to deal with. 4 men each. There are the Nessi. Get a pencil. There are the Nessi, which is the Negro. That's this black brother right here. Then the Negro, which is all of them are Negroes, if you want to put it that word, you know, this is the 18th century. So the Hemmu, which is a man of light brown hue, that's a mulatto, because the Arabs and the Semitic that you see now is a white person. I would be a Semite back then. You see, this is coming from the wall. Is light, okay, light brown in hue, okay, with hair in a bag. Then you would have the Tamahu. Now this is the Ruti, which is the black man. They say red, but it was actually the Egyptian. Then you have the Hemmu, which is light brown, probably my complexion. Then you have the blue-black man, which could range from the Egyptians to the West African and the South African, which is the Nessi. Ruti, Egyptian. Hemmu, which is Semitic, which is a black person. And I'm going to show you one of the real pictures of this black person in a few minutes. And the Nessi, which is your blue-black Ethiopian and all of that particular part. Then you have what is called the Tamahu. Show you another picture of this Tamahu. You're going to put this up. This is the Tamahu. Same person up here is down here. This is all coming also excerpts in my book, The Human Artificial. Now, this is the key. Now, this is all in the temple. This is why they in the tomb. That's why they had to excavate and tear the stuff down. Then you would have the Tamahu are fair Europeans. The root, which is that, are the Egyptians. These are typical groups that meant merely for conquered races, as may be gathered from the significance of their name. Tamahu, meaning light-complected people. The Egyptian Tama means created. Got that? This is coming off the wall. This is what. Who means white, light, ivory. Tamahu are the created white people. Coming off the walls now, Temple of Seti I. This is what I had to tear down the temple. Okay. Na means black, black ink. Neb means the blackbird. Shu means a person of birth. Neshu, or Nasi, means the black barn, or the Egyptian phase of the black from the egg. That's the egg of space, and that's the black dot. And the black dot coming out of the wombs. Him means rudder, or to pedal, to fish. Hemi, to seer. Him who thus indicates the sailors, or the seafarers, like which would be your Phoenicians and all that, which were just black people. Coming from blue-black all the way up to my color. And the people of the Isles. The Isles are the Gentiles, which the original Gentiles were black people. Might be rendered under an Egyptian Isle or the Amu or the Hemmu. The hieroglyphic Hem means the sign of the water. or frontier. The word root, which is the rooty, which is the black, is the various meanings of all significance applied to the Egyptians by themselves. Root means to retain from the carved from the footstool a pair of feet caused to do with the plant or to grow or to repeat. Now, this is the key, the reason why they had to take that out. Take this off of the wall, because it's dealing with the Tamahu. You remember the Tamahu? Get another picture of him. The three races of men, that's the white man. This is it. All the rest of them come from a lineage of the original people, even the Hemmu. The white boy is a created person. They specifically say that he's created. They said the other ones come from the black egg. This one is created. Created by who? Let me explain. Let me explain. It says, the Egyptians were from the true root, the one primordial people first conscious and told the earth to retain the knowledge of the fact. The land of Egypt is the footstool, root. The people were the feet, the root, and which the human being first arose erect and attained its full stature. Identically, however, we learn that the Egyptians regarded the black race, because that was a later form, first created man. That first created man, not human, but man. Now this is the key. The people of Ra were born the great ones, who is in the heavens. Root is born of the eye in their persons, superior man. Also, the Amu, which is another form of this white boy, and the Tamahu further confirmed itself. Now this is the key that I'll get ready to say. This is the point. The root born of his eye. The eye is the black dot, which is the eye of Heru, or the eye of Ra, or the eye of Sut. And their superior people are born out of the eye of that particular eye of the gods, which is the black substance, or the heavens, the cosmos, the chaos sphere. Root is born of the eye. Their persons are superior. They are born of the heavens, of the superior man. He, the root people, the Nessi and the Rusi, also created the Amu and the Tamahu. Further has confirmed itself as the multitudes came from him in the shape of the Negroes. Now what it means is that the Tamahu was created by black people. This particular person who is the created man. Well, who created him? Black people created him. And this is the reason why they don't show the pictures of the Temple of Seti I, or they completely demolished the temple and rebuilt it and took out what they wanted to take out. Also in the bas reliefs of the Biblium El Manuk that you're going to find from Champollion, they also talk about this particular science too. So this was the reason why they had to actually stop people from coming to that particular part at a certain point so they could remodel that temple and take the carvings off the wall. Because in there they talk about the created man. This is the historical documents. Now in science, you have the theory. And that stands as a theory and the best evidence until you find the archaeological evidence. But the archaeological and anthropological evidence of the white man being a created person is at the Temple of Seti I and the tombs of Seti I of Biblium El Maluk, who is Ramesses IV and the Fifth. And this is very key. But Cheikh Anta Diop being married, you can get most of the story in his book, African Art, a Myth of Reality. But he took out some of the part, and you can find the other part in Gerald Massey's Book of the Beginning, Volume 1, page 27, which is the missing page that talk about the created white man Tamahu. You see, the created white man Tamahu. Now we'll go a little further on this particular science. Now what we're going to do is, that's the Temple of Seti I at the first Holy Land. Now,
can I ask you for some clarification on the white man being a created man?
Right.
Is there any other places that we may find some evidence of this creation? Now,
Okay,
you told
good.
us that it's in Diop. You've also told us that that we can get in Geromancy, Volume 1, page 27. Are there any papyrus or anything like that?
Yes, there is some papyrus. I'm going to read you some right now to let you know that he is a devil in the British Museum, but I'm going to go into some other stuff right quick. Number one, also, you need to get a book called Canaan, Israel, and Egypt. Let me give you the...
Now this is very important.
Yes, very important.
You are saying that the Egyptians...
And the black people.
The black people.
Right.
The black man created
the white man, and we have the archaeological evidence.
And you are now going to go in and
Yeah.
explain to us from this archaeological evidence how it was done.
Well, I'm going to give you the archaeological evidence. It's a greater deal, but I'll go in and explain as best I can at this particular time in a condensed version. Now, the book you're going to get is Egypt, Canaan, Israel in Ancient Times by Donald B. Redford. He also wrote a book called Akhenaten and Heretic King. And this is the Kemetic records of the Yakub in the collapse of the Old Kingdom. And in there they talk about the Hyksos worship of God by the name of Yakub Ker. The Yakub Ker. And it is in these Kemetic records. Yakub, Y-A-K-O-B-H-A-R. Yakub Ker. Now, you know of the Yakub story of Dr. Honorable Elijah Muhammad talks about the Yakub created the people. But now we have the actual records of Yakub in Donald B. Redford's book that actually found some actual archetypes, documents in the 5th dynasty of this particular god Yakub. So we also have that documented. We also have a book called Bright's. The author's called Bright. That's I know Bright's History of Israel. It talks about the same Yakub Ker that is a part of that particular Yakub Ker is a part that the Hyksos used to worship. Yakub,
So he was a god.
he was
There's a
he was
temple that's
yeah.
built
I'm
to
going to
him?
tell you. Yes, a temple that was built to him. Yakub. Okay, let me give you the actual archaeological number on that. Yakub, let's say note number 69. Yakub italics. Let me get this right. 69 italics, page 349 to 50. Von Beckerath, B-E-C-K-E-R-A-T-H. Von Beckerath. That's the study of that Yakub Ker is this a German scholar, and it says under Serbungen, under Serbungen, page 179, it's a German name for this particular study on Yakub Ker. So we do have that Yakub. It's also a form of Jacob in the Bible also too. Yakub is not saying that Jacob was Yakub, but Yakub is also translated Jacob in Hebrew. Not saying it's got anything to do with the Jacob in the Bible, but we do know that, and you can find that translation also in Charles French's book, Echoes of the Old Dark Land. So we do have the records of Yakub. Now, let me go into a few other things before we get into that, because we want to give you some other sources for all kind of black people to look at. I want to give you the other geromancy findings of this particular Tamahu, or this particular part. So bear with me as I get the particular part of that, because we want to give all of the records of Yakub and all of this stuff now. Check with me now. You can find this stuff in my book, the documents, if you want to. You can find this stuff so you don't have to go out and get them. I do have the documents in my new book called Human Artificial, The Historical Origins of the Devil in the Human Artificial. So we do have that. Now what I want to do is I want to find the last little piece on that, on geromancy, that's recorded. In the Book of the Beginnings, Volume 1, he says that leprosy was indigenous to the Egyptians, and the white Negroes were produced by that. That's talking about genetic engineering and gene splicing. Now, you're going to get an article by the name of Kuna Moonchild Albinism, 1975 article by a white boy that is taken from Aleister Crowley wrote a book called Moonchild on creating this mutant. Kuna Moonchild albinism that you're going to find in the ISIS papers of Frances Cress Welsing. She's got the article printed in there on this leprosy. And anytime you go through the Bible and you see leprosy is based on this white boy, he said that's the white man being created, or the white man, you see. Also, Gerald Massey documents that in Book of the Beginning at the first chapter in the part entitled first volume of the book. So now you're going to find that particular, anytime you see that leprosy, they're talking about white people. Now the white boys is documenting that also too. And I'm getting ready to go into some deeper manifestation of that called the astrocarps right now too. Now listen, called the non-humans. Now, what you want to deal with here is this. You're also going to get the story of in a book called Atlantis and Lemuria by Rudolf Steiner. It's dealing with the creation of this white boy, but he misconstrued. He's talking about Manu. Now, mind you me, he's talking about these things in Rudolf Steiner's book in 1920-something. Now, that is even before the time when Honorable Elijah Muhammad is supposedly being taught by Master Farad Muhammad. The white boys even had this particular information. Now, mind you, in my particular book, I got 98% white scholars talking about this white man being the devil.
Does Gerald Massey indicate that he agrees with this?
Oh, definitely. If you read closely, I'll go into some other science also too at the end of the lecture. But now I'm going to read you two or three parts. Now in the book, Rudolf Steiner's book Atlantis and Lemuria, he goes and said that Manu was a person who created based on genetic gene splicing. That the white boy now can splice genes. They got mutants and all kind of things. Based on genetic gene splicing. Now remember now, this is one of the lowest forms of civilization. We had the highest form, so you know damn well we could do it if the white boy could do it.
Because we are doing all kinds of gene splicing.
Right,
now.
and if he's doing things with
we are splicing plant and
animals and also fruits.
That is correct.
With hybrid stuff. So if the white boy can do it now and he only has a smidgen of the knowledge, what you think we could do with a circle of circumference of the knowledge of 360 degrees if you want to put it in that part of numbers?
But I do want to emphasize again that today we are doing gene splicing.
They're doing gene splicing.
Human genes and putting them together with pigs.
Pigs.
To make the meat more
genetic
tender and
hormones.
more tastier. We're taking tomatoes and
That's
splicing
right.
them with animal genes and etc. So we are crossing genes. So what you're saying in terms of our ability to have done gene splicing at the high point of Egyptian civilization.
That's right.
Is really quite feasible.
It's right, exactly. If the priest had 360 degrees of knowledge, just to say on numbers, because there was no such thing as 360 degrees, but we talk about in terms of the knowledge that you can go on the scale of the 33rd or whatever in masonry. If you're talking about 360 degrees, you know damn well they could do it if they had the knowledge of the universe compared to the white boy can do it with limited knowledge. And we taught him.
Let's proceed.
Okay,
I'm
now.
really anxious for you.
Okay, now. In the book Rudolf Steiner, they say Manu, the book, they say you can get this book from Health Research now because it's out of print. But Health Research is a book company out of California that sell all out of print books. Rudolf Steiner's Atlantis and Lemuria. He talks about Manu creating a new race of men by selecting a germ. That's the gene. In the book. But he misconstrued because it's actually Yakub, because we got the historical documents of Yakub. But based on the spiritual channelings, Manu, which is also documented throughout of Indian history in India, Manu was a teacher of Yakub that taught him genetic engineering. And they first taught him this, they first did the genetic engineering off of the black boar, which is the original pig, which is a normal pig. And just like they dissect frogs in the class, they dissect those black boars back then. And from the black boar, they made the white pig. And then after that, this Yakub, learning this genetic engineering, went and started experimenting on humans. But the reason why they couldn't detect it, because the incubation of the laboratory, this Frankenstein's laboratory, was in Europe in the caves. So they created them in the caves. So by the time they came out and was taught by the Egyptian how to speak, you can get that out of Count Boney. Now there's no other people on the earth that is going into barbarism. And taught them how to speak, then in actuality, the people thought in actuality it was another race of people. But because that was particular history that was hidden of a creation. Now, Manu was the person that taught him. Based on the genetic things. Now, also, Honorable Elijah Muhammad book, The Theology of Time, he said that in actuality, we know that the white boy, when he out of barbarism, and even in Greece and Rome, they didn't live to 30 years. That 30 years was the average age for white people. And it wasn't until they doggone started making knowledge, giving science of the pig, and started actually dealing with the pig till they created a medicine for them. And that's why pork is the #1 food of break fast, which is the most important meal of the day. Breakfast, which is you break your fast, break fast, is consistent of pig in the European diet. And he used the pig as a form of medicine, but the pig was not unlike him because it's an unnatural species. Why? Because also we now know based on melanoma skin cancer, which the white boy catches catches cancer from the rays of the sun because he does not have the melanin to protect him, and everything under the sun has melanin but the abnormal people. The only thing that catches melanoma skin cancer is the white man and the pig. Now, if the white man was a natural person, when he makes medicine in his laboratories, seemed to me he would use a normal rat. You ever seen a doggone white rat running around in your house? No. But if you're going to see a rat, it's going to be a gray rat. And a lot of black people got rats, as well as white people, because the richer you are, the bigger the rats are. I'm telling you, we used to go to the rich neighborhoods and see big-ass rats, and we never saw them in the black neighborhood. We had poor rats.
We had pretty big rats.
Yeah, well, you did too. Well, you know. We didn't wet. But you ever seen the white rats running around the house? No. If you from the country, you country boy like me.
That's true.
You ever seen a white rabbit running around you? If you ever saw a rabbit in the wild, it's a brown rabbit. But yet when the white man creates medicine for himself, and he creates medicine for himself, he used what? White rats. There's a whole company that produces these mutant rats. That's because he understands that his body is different than yours. He's an abnormal person. See what I'm saying? He's an abnormal person. Now, it's interesting because the temples, because we got the archaeological evidence. Now, I'm going to read you a 5,000-year-old papyrus in a few minutes, in a particular few minutes. And all I want to do is stuff.
Tell me when it's on.
Now, you know doggone well that everything under the earth strives under the sun. And let's look at the magnitude of this. They put a sun as the central energy for everything on the earth. And you mean to tell me there's something on earth that the sun kills? That means in actuality you don't supposed to be on the earth in the first place. You understand what I'm saying? So that right there lets you know that they're abnormal. Let's go into some key other documents on this white boy since we own here. You know what I'm saying? Now, it's the year of I think the year is also 1895. An occultist by the name of C.W. Ledbetter. C.W. Ledbetter is making a fantastic statement before the Theosophical Society that is started by Blavatsky. Now, at this particular time, they're interested in trying to find out how they can save themselves in the future by raising themselves up to try to become human. But they say, first of all, we must try to understand what we are first so we can know what to work for. So C.W. Ledbetter is making an address to the Theosophical Society in 1895. And at this particular time, he is interested in telling the people just exactly what we are. And he comes out with this information saying exactly finally what is the white man if he's not human? What is he? So then this is what happens. What happens is this. He goes in and he makes this presentation. Now, you can get this particular rendition of this presentation either out of my book, Human Artificial, or you can get it also in A.E. Powell's, Lieutenant Colonel A.E. Powell. The book is called A.E. Powell, Astrobody, page 69, where he reprinted the actual address, Ledbetter's address. Now, there's the group, the Theosophical Society got upset with Abydos Press and told them that they didn't want this stuff reprinted, but they printed it anyway. But anyway, now the book is out. Most people don't read, because this is a non-literary society, till it's out. And the people who read it, fine. The people don't. Now, C.W. Ledbetter is doing this address, and he says, well, number one, we are known as astrocorps. A corpse is a dead person.
Astrocorps.
Right. At that particular part, you have Asia. Right? Now, at that particular time that you have Asia, and I want to get into the papyrus. First of all, let's go into the 5,000-year-old papyrus. Now, this stuff is coming from a series of papyrus of stuff that was put together by a white Egyptologist in the late 1960s, 1967, T.H. Valdi. Some research work that was done for research only. This stuff was never put out to the public. Now, as a matter of fact, what had happened was they was gracious enough to send some of this particular work down this work down to the Theological Seminary in Atlanta, ITC, the black preachers. The black preachers sat on this particular work for 20 years and didn't know what they had. 20 years after they understood, based on the ASCAC and all the stuff, and black people getting into Afrocentricity, Emory University came to the Woodruff Library after they had Woodruff Library in the AU Center in Atlanta and stole the book. Now, this stuff was never put out to the public. I went to Emory and stole the book from them. See what I'm saying? Stole the book back from them. It's called T.H. Valdi Set, the God of Confusion. His role in studying mythology by, H.T. Valdi, I'm sorry about that. It's coming out of Leiden. That's a part from it in London.
Hold that so we can get that on camera.
And all.
So we will know that this is authentic.
Authentic.
And we are now going to read from it.
Yeah. Now we're going to read. This is a series of papyrus. One is called a homosexual papyrus of Keith. It's actually talking about the European is not only, he is bisexual by nature. New book that came out, Bisexuality in the Ancient World, by Yale University Press, fall of 1992. And they said that this book is put together for pure research only. Only a few selected people are supposed to have this. And in there is a papyrus. The papyrus number, the papyrus we're dealing with here is the Egyptian Papyrus of Dreams. The hieratic is the the hieratic papyrus of the British Museum. Chester Beatty is the name of the person who bought the papyrus from Kemetic. The Chester Beatty papyrus.
And we can find that
in the British Museum if they let you read it. That's the point.
Yes.
Also, they have stuff locked up in the university, in the bottom of the University of Chicago, Oriental Institute, the main school of Egyptology that was funded by Rockefeller. And they're guarding now. Now, Egyptology is interesting because there are no grants for Egyptology. Also, too, you got to have a letter of recommendation from some governor to go into Egyptology. So it's interesting. There's certain papyrus. Now, this is the Chester Beatty papyrus. Now, I've seen this papyrus, but some of this papyrus is in books that's carved up, so they don't put the whole thing because they want to take out a certain amount of things. Chester Beatty papyrus. Alan H. Gardner, who is the grandfather of Martin Bernal. He's translating the hieratic papyri 1935, hieratic papyri of the British Museum. Chester Beatty, who was the person who was the owner of the papyrus who donated it to the British Museum after he got it out of Egypt, or Kemet, and bought it. Now, in this papyrus, the 5,000, when you say hieratic, you have Egyptian writing, you have hieroglyphs that you see, then you have the script, hieratic and demotic. Hieratic is the early form, and demotic is the later form. Hieratic papyrus means it could be first dynastic papyrus, going all the way back to pre-dynastic, about 5,000 years. So this one is at least dates to anywhere from 3,000 to 5,000 year old papyrus.
So this is hieratic.
Hieratic papyrus. Translated by Alan H. Gardner, who was a hieroglyphic expert, and I'm going to get into some other things on the forgery of the pyramids that he's dealing with. Hieroglyphic expert, who is the grandfather of Martin Bernal, who wrote Black Athena, that teaches at Cornell.
Yes.
Right. Now, let's deal with that. It shows that the Egyptian idea of the barbarians, who are the barbarians? White people. Now, it says that they live in a miserable part of the world. Their water supply is wretched. That forces them to lead a nomadic existence. They are always, and although their ways of communication is poor because of the mountains, that's the Caucasus Mountains. and the forest. Hence, they have a restless nature, which means they have a restless nature. The nature is the innate soul of a person. I don't give a damn how much training you got. Your nature dictates who you are. They have a restless nature. They are always grumbling because they could not talk. Count Barney told you that in his book, Ruins of Empires, that the Egyptians taught them how to speak. They have a restless nature. They're always grumbling. They cannot finally be defeated since the days of Horus. So that means in actuality, the Kemites in the Africas was battling with this beast a long time.
But could not defeat him.
Reason why they couldn't defeat him, they say in actuality, they said because he is treacherous, he just does not openly announce the day of battle. So what they mean in actuality, that's a twofold thing. It means in actuality that he is not to be trusted. You see. He's not a fair person because he has a restless nature. He's the devil. Like thieves, they shun a united army. So that's something that we need to go to today. When we united, they shun that. They're thieves. The Egyptian Book of Dreams, which is another Egyptian Book of Dreams, coming from the chest of Bedi Papyrus. The Egyptian Book of Dreams, the characteristics as follows. Surely, by chance, we find the word Asiatics in this miserable passage, in this corrupt passage. You remember there was no Europe at that time, it was Asia. But they simply, in the papyrus, they tell you that they live in a miserable part of the world and they locate the mountains. It's telling you what part of Asia. The Caucasus Mountains. So they said, so the miserable Asiatics at that time in this corrupt passage may not be going too far to suppose that according to the Egyptian Book of Dreams and the followers of the devil, because at that time they indicated a form of Set Typhon as the devil by the Osirians. There's an earlier Set Typhon, which is the good Set Typhon, is the archetype of Osiris. But the one in this mythology is talking about the devil. When we talk about the followers of the devil or Set Typhon, we have the typical foreigners. These foreigners are Sethian people, or i.e. the devil's people. Their sexual conduct is reprehensible, going by bisexuality in the ancient world, talking about a race of people as bisexual, even if they are masculine. That's a form of male chauvinism, is a form of homosexuality. Even what you would call homophobia is a form of bisexuality, hiding from themselves. They try to cover up. Their sexual conduct is reprehensible. They are given to drink and quarrelsome and murderous. They will not indeed reach the west, which the west is the end time cycle where the sun starts in the east and ends in the west, so shall the Son of Man, which is talking about us. We are in the west, which means the west means also, the west means you will not reach heaven. But they will reach the neither world. That's the lower astral planes. You see what I'm saying? Even such a person becomes an official of a pharaoh, still retains the personality is R-I-T. People divided into PT and R-I-T sometimes in this category. PT is the true people. R-I-T are others. Surely come to the second phase and are contrasted as PT. Now, it means in actuality that in Gardner's book, his conclusion, Alan H. Gardner, based on his conclusions of the heretical prize of the British Museum, he writes a book called Abduction Extraordinaire that never gets out of Egypt, never gets out of Paris, never translated into France or into English for us to read. These are some fragments in there where he says, based on the heretical prize of the British Museum in his book Abduction Extraordinaire, in France, above Egypt, abnormal people. Below Egypt and Africa, normal people. The above he was talking about was the actual Egyptians. And even if a person was married to a white person, they would get laughed at and get scorned because they understand they was married to non-human. Now, this is the heretical prize of the British Museum. Now we go into another form of Yakub that was translated, that was channeled by Annie Besant and was given. Channel means that she went and got uncovered this particular science on who they were, and was given in an address 1895 by C.W. Ledbetter. And it's talking about astrocarps. Carps mean dead. Caucasian, carcass means dead. Caucasian means dead Asian, because there was no Europe at that time for that part of Asia, the dead Asians. It's called an astrocarps. They are known as a shade, which is an entity, in a sense, not a real individual at all. Nevertheless, it bears his exact personal appearance. His, which is talking about the original man, possesses his memory, possesses the original man memory, and all his little idiosyncrasies. Now, we understand that it's white. When they say personal appearance, they're talking about the head, the leg, the arms, and all of that. In the shape of a human, but not the color. And certainly not the hair, not the hair, you know. In a lot of his idiosyncrasies. It may therefore very readily be mistaken for him, the original man. You can mistake this thing for the original man. As indeed frequently at seance, which means they go into seance to find out who they are. It is not conscious of its act of interpretation. So this is the reason why you can't fool it. It just acts, it's in this area and just acts this way. It may act a little human because it was trained, but it's not conscious of it. For as far as its intellect goes, it must necessarily suppose itself to be an individual. It is rarely merely a soulless bundle of all the lowest qualities. The length of its life of a shade varies, this shade, according to the lower amount of material matter that emanates it, the third dimension. As long as the third dimension stays around, the white boy can stay around. That's why he's trying to maintain this physical structure, because he knows outside of the physical he cannot survive, because he does not have the black dot. But it is steadily fading out. Now, it's been fading out since 1895, which is almost out of here. Its intellect is diminishing quaintly. It may possess a great deal of a certain sort of animal cunningness, even though towards the end of its career, it is still able to communicate by borrowing temporary intelligence from the medium, the original people. So it feeds off us. That's the true meaning of the vampire. That's why you see this vampire movie out now and all these vampire books. The Yakub story is the Frankenstein story. But the vampire is what it is. Now, from its very nature, it is liable to be swayed by all kinds of evil influences. And being separated from the higher ego, the black dot, it has nothing in its constitution capable of responding to the good ones. That's us. If it responds, that's a master-slave relationship, even though you think we have arrived. They're still on top of things. It's never going to be even, or you be even better than them. It is therefore lends itself readily by various minor purposes. Some baser sorts of the black magicians. Now, what do they mean? It means that what's happening is the black magicians from Atlantis, or Yakub, created it for baser minor purposes, and the experiment got out of hand. The mental matter possesses a gradual distinction and returns to the general matter of its own plane, which means it's going to go back to its own plane. Once this physical matter unleashed both the god and the mutant is going back to the lower astral plane. It's where it is from. And that's what the deal is. One other part, you need to get the book People of a Secret. The People of a Secret by Ernest Scott, where they say that and also a book called Pathology of Dion Fortune's book, Psychic Self-Defense, Pathology of Non-Human Contacts, where it says that non-human people in human bodies, all documented. Another part is Ernest Scott's book, People of the Secret, where he says that the Moors went up into Europe to produce alchemy. Alchemy is the science of the soul, to make a non-aberrated man. Aberrant means unusual, abnormal, and not natural, as opposed to normal, usual, and natural. And he made it so they wanted to make a non-aberrated man, or a person that was normal. And they said that the idea of the Moors going up into the Spain to make souls for those who did not have souls. Try to give them the black dot. All documented by white people. All documented by white people.
In their invasion of Spain.
Yeah.
And they are setting up all of these schools
right.
and higher centers of
Yeah.
learning was to raise the consciousness of
the white person. Right.
To give him a soul.
Give him a soul. What happened was they said that in actuality, the Brotherhood of Melchizedek said, you all people back in the day created it, so therefore you got to do something about it. So they set up the society and gave them civilization and all that.
Mm-hmm. Now, how did they get the mysteries in terms of masonry and the Rosicrucians?
There was the part where the Greeks went into the mystery system. Mm-hmm. But after the Dark Age came, all that died out. Mm-hmm. Then there was a Dark Age in Europe.
That is correct.
Then the Moors came up and gave them masonry based on the Knights Templars. And then you have the York Rite, the Scottish Rite, and all this stuff started up based on, they gave them the 16 universities, and they also set up the masonry. That's why most of
the Moors set the masonry up.
Set the masonry up for white people.
And that was to give them principles and
stuff like that, structures
on how to raise themselves
up.
Level.
Also, if you notice, that's why in masonry, they start off with the Bible, then they go into the Quran, and also in masonry, you'll see some of the shrines as Islamic. Mm-hmm. That's from the Moors of Spain. That's why when you get Stanley Poole's book, you will see the Islamic structures in there, which is some of the Masonic stuff. If you one of the greatest Masonic buildings in the world now that's left over is in Atlanta, Georgia. It's the Fox Theater, which was the Scottish Rite, I believe, first Masonic hall. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's the Fox Theater down there, mm-hmm. and it's built just like the Moors made. If you want to see what the Moors did, you go to the Fox Theater. And if you go in, they got a whole Egyptian ballroom. In there, they got pictures of the black man that's Egypt. Mm-hmm. They got pictures of this stuff, you know, in that Masonic thing. Now it's the theater. They after they built another one, they turned it into the Fox Theater. But in there, on the top of the theater, they got all the stars, and they got one big star in there, one bigger star. That's Sirius. Mm-hmm. You see. Mm-hmm. So this is the deal that's going on with that. Now let's go into some other things right now. What we're going to deal with right now is the pyramids in Egypt. The pyramids, based on Alan H. Gardner, you need to get a book called Stairway to Heaven by Zachariah Stitchin. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole section in here on the forgery of the pyramids. Forging the Pharaoh's name of the pyramids by Alan H. Gardner that Zachariah Stitchin is printing in his book. Alan H. Gardner, being a hieroglyphic expert, has concluded in the book Stairway to Heaven. This is the earlier books. Now you can get the book for $4. I'm going to show you some other things in this book. And they forged the actual pyramids. Khufu just did repairs. I showed you the limestone pyramid. Let's put the actual Earth and the Fire album back up. Khufu did repairs. The actual pyramid, the limestone pyramid, was older than that. We now have dates in actuality that pyramid is at least 1 million years old. Even the movie Stargate bears witness to that the pyramids is even older than that. Now, supposedly he forged the pyramids because what happened when a structure got too old, what would happen is the pharaohs would come in and do repairs and they put their name on it. So when the people start saying, the people say, no, that ain't right. When the people come in, they say, Khufu built it. It's way older than that. The pyramid is a symbol of Sirius. It's a symbol also of Sirius. This is a symbol of Sirius. You clearly see the star and the pyramid. It's a symbol of Sirius. And when we get into it, your architecture is built around the star Sirius. This hieroglyph means Sirius. It means sept. S-E-P-T. Sept, which is the star system Sirius. And your pyramids is Syriac architecture that is a symbol of the Sirius. Now, what's happening here is, by him being a hieroglyphic expert, he found out that they forged the pyramids, and those pyramids now is at least, based on spiritual channeling, is at least 1 million years old. You have your pyramids in Mexico. You see, that's quite old. Now you know of your step pyramid of Saqqara. I want to deal with one thing right now. Remember this step pyramid of Saqqara, because when I get into Syriac architecture, and I wish I would have shown the new layout of Atlanta, Georgia. You know of your step pyramid of Saqqara. That's the first one that Imhotep built. Now, this one, the step pyramid. And you have other step pyramids on the Mexican pyramids. You got two good books, Secrets of the Egyptian Pyramids. I think it's the Secrets of the Egyptian Pyramids by Peter Tompkins, and the other book is Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramids, where he also goes into a group of black people blue black men from Atlantis, who saw Atlantis go down. They were from Sirius. And they saw Atlantis go down, and these blue men from Sirius recorded this stuff and left the actual recordings of it going down in the Andes. In the Andes. I think the Andes is in Peru, I think. You see. So you got a whole mysteries of the Mexican pyramids that's going down over in Mexico, and that whole thing. And that's why Mexico is the double horizon. You got a pyramid on this east, on this side, Kemetic, and you got a pyramid in Mexico, which is symbolize the Americas. You got a Nile Valley in Kemetic, and now we just located the new Nile Valley in it's called the St. John's River in the western Nile in Jacksonville, Florida. You got the Nile that flows upstream in Kemetic. You got the Nile that flows upstream in Jacksonville, Florida. And it's interesting that the white boy named it St. John. St. John is the author of the book of Revelation, who is also Tahuti, Tut-an, Anubis, a form of Tahuti. And that means the book of Revelation is the end time. And so the Son of Man rising up in the west is rising up from the western Nile, as well as the western pyramids. That's what Muhammad told Honorable Elijah Muhammad, to look to the Mexican pyramids, because that's where the black man going to rise up in this whole western hemisphere. There's a whole book called The Lost Realms by Zachariah Stitchin, which he has the Earth Chronicles, and you could get all of his book. This is one of them, Stairway to Heaven. There's The Lost Realm, Genesis Revisited, and The War of God and Man. And different books you can get. Zachariah Stitchin, you now can get those books for $4 a piece. Get the entire volumes of the Earth Chronicles by Zachariah Stitchin. Now, what's happening is this. Your particular pyramids, we know that was forged, so they're now at least 2 million years old. I want to show you this picture because this is very key. This is the lighthouse of Alexandria. After the actual Greeks took all of the actual stuff out of the temples, they put it in the Library of Alexandria. This is the Library of Alexandria, which is the lighthouse of Alexandria. This is the first building in Kemet. This is in Kemet. And it's the first, let's say, 40-story building ever. And it was in Egypt. And this is how it looked. There's a replica of this Library of Alexandria in Alexandria, Virginia. You got how many? 5 minutes? Seconds? Okay. Good. Good.